I'm really serious. Please, for the love of everything, please do not do this when you're at basic training, because it's definitely the worst thing that you can possibly do. What's going on, guys? So just yesterday I made a video talking about my worst smoking as a whole as a platoon at basic training, and I thought it was kind of fun just telling you guys a story. And whenever I was thinking about it and everything and thinking about telling you guys more stories, this topic, this video idea kind of just hit me, and something that I haven't really talked about that much, and it's kind of the source of a couple of the worst smoke sessions that has happened at basic training. Some of the funniest things, or one of the funny stories that I have about basic training, has come from this thing that you should definitely not do. I can't think of really anything else that is better than this, aside from just going up and punching a drill sergeant in the face, and that still technically isn't even as bad in a few areas, but you would get kicked out of the military, so that's obviously really bad. But what in the world is the worst thing that you could possibly do at basic training? So just so you guys know, whenever you're in the military, every single thing that is issued to you, you sign off for it. If it has a serial number, you're going to basically check that serial number, you're gonna read it, you're gonna write it down, you're gonna sign off on it, and then whenever you turn back in whatever piece of equipment it is that has a serial number, they're going to check the serial number and everything. There's a big emphasis on accountability of your gear in the military, so you don't wanna lose your gear. But the one thing that you really don't wanna lose, especially at basic training, is your weapon, right? And this will kind of happen for a few people. You might kind of have it a little bit too far away from you, but you do not want to legitimately lose this. And this will happen sometimes for people at basic training, and it's really bad. It is not a good scenario. It's not a good day for you. It's not gonna be a good day for the rest of your platoon. I got a couple short little stories to tell you guys about what things that can happen to you. But basically, when you're at basic training, and really in the military in general, whenever you have your weapon is within the arm's reach of you at all times. It should never be farther than you just being able to reach over and grab it. If it ever is, if you want to go to the latrine, the bathroom or something, if you want to go somewhere and you can't take it, then what you will do is you will hand it to a battle buddy, you will hand it to another soldier, be like, hey, watch this till I get back. You never, ever want to leave a weapon unattended at basic training. And sometimes this will happen at basic because you guys aren't really aware of the seriousness of this. If you guys didn't know, if you're on a military post, if you're on an army post, and somebody just anywhere really loses a weapon and it's unaccounted for, nobody can find it, and it just literally can't be found, they'll shut down the whole post because you lose this. And you can imagine how pissed off your drill sergeants are going to be if you lose this and you don't know where it's at. A lot of times you might lose it. Sometimes even if you misplace it, you'll put it somewhere, then you'll walk away and you don't leave somebody to guard it. A drill sergeant might go up and actually take it and then kind of ask you, be like, hey, private, where's your weapon? And you're going to be looking at him like, oh gosh, I'm screwed. And then eventually you're probably going to get smoked for a little bit, but he's going to give it back to you and be like, don't lose this. One little crazy thing that happened to this one guy in my platoon that lost his weapon at basic training during an FTX. I think it was like the first or second FTX, one of the shorter ones where it's just like a one night overstay or whatever in the woods. What he did was he left it up against a tree and kind of walked away or something. And I remember I was the platoon leader at the time, and I remember him coming over to me and be like, Ward, I lost my weapon. I don't know where it's at. And we went looking everywhere. I didn't want to tell the drill sergeant this time, so we're looking. I get a couple people, we're looking for the weapon and everything. Can't find it at all. Eventually, you have to come to terms and go and talk to a drill sergeant and be like, hey, we can't find his weapon. Drill sergeant's super pissed off. It turned out that the drill sergeant actually, like I said before, went and actually grabbed it because it was just laying over next to a tree by itself. So the drill sergeant picked it up, took it away, and let us kind of freak out over the fact that we had lost a weapon. The funny thing with this is the drill sergeant made this private actually dig a burial grave and dig a grave for his weapon, bury it, and then do a little service and talk to the weapon like it had died, and speak about how he let it down by leaving it alone and everything like that. And that was kind of a funny thing. It was super super embarrassing for him. The whole company and everybody was just crowded around. Like, we were told to like watch him do this, and we were like told to watch him, you know, speak about his weapon and literally about how he let it down and how it was always by his side and all this stuff. So in this case, this guy who left his weapon by itself without anybody, you know, watching it, just was it became a whole company event where he was basically embarrassed by the entire company. There's another instance during the final FTX where this one guy in my platoon, I remember he left his 249, one of the saw guns, next to something, you know, I don't know, it was at least like 100 meters away or so, and we're over here in our formation. He didn't necessarily lose it, he knew where it was at, but he didn't, you know, think, like he had walked away from it. We're over here, drill sergeants are yelling, you know, whose weapon is this, whose weapon is this? Turns out it was his. And what the drill sergeants made the whole platoon do was basically get in an air squat, you know, form or whatever, holding our M16s out in front of us and then holding them over our heads and then doing that. And we had to do that until he low crawled all the way over there. And it was, you know, it took forever. He didn't actually make it all the way. I think the drill sergeant got really pissed off because after like 20 minutes or so, he's just like, why are you going so slow? I mean, this guy low crawling, if you guys didn't know, when you low crawl, your face is actually in the dirt. If you're high crawling, you're basically crawling with your elbows. If you're low crawling, your face is in the dirt and you're like dragging yourself. So it's a very, very slow crawl, and the drill sergeant was yelling at him and everything to crawl over there. This particular smoke session was a shorter but more intense smoke session that we were all just having to endure by, you know, doing things with our weapons and just all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, at this point in time, this reaction of a smoke session kind of caused a chain reaction of different smoke sessions just because this guy, you know, left his weapon unattended. So aside from number one, potentially shutting down an entire army post, number two, getting, you know, embarrassed, you know, yelled at by the drill sergeants, getting your platoon smoked, aside from those things, if you end up losing it and you legitimately lose it, and if you lose equipment, or in general for that matter, if you lose this, you're gonna end up having to pay for it. Now personally, I've never been in a scenario where somebody has actually lost a weapon and it was not found. Sometimes these things will be unaccounted for a while, but eventually they will be found. You know, the person might have a weapon that's not there. So what generally happens a lot of times is all these weapons are kind of just, you know, jumbled all together. They're sitting up against a bunch of trees. Somebody's gonna go and grab the wrong weapon, the wrong one with the wrong serial number, even though at basic training they should have other like big numbers on them to show which one's theirs. So we'll go through accountability process and everything like that, and that's usually what happens. You know, somebody picks up yours and then you're sitting here like, oh my gosh, I don't know what happened to it. So just, if it's within arm's reach of you, that's probably not going to happen. So something that you guys should really think about, especially at the beginning of basic training, because a lot of people might not have this mindset of like really like one of the most important things at basic training is accountability of your weapons, right? You do not ever want to have one not accounted for. That is not good. That is going to be one of the quickest ways to get the drill sergeants just like from 0 to 100 just pissed off at you guys, because it's a very serious thing. And one of the reasons that's like this at basic training is because if you lose your weapon, you know, overseas, if you lose it really in any scenario, like you're basically pointless at that point. You're not really a soldier. You're just a person there. You're not going to be punching the enemies to death. You can't shoot them. If you lose your weapon, you're basically as good as dead, because that is your weapon. That is your life support of how you're going to stay alive. So it is extremely important to keep track of that, and they really instill that in you at basic training. So just keep that in mind, guys, whenever you get there. If there's other people who aren't really thinking about it that much, you know, you just want to make sure you tell them like, hey, this is like, you just really need to make sure you have people watching the weapons. You know, if you see some guy walking away from it, you yourself go grab it, or go ask like, hey, whose is this? Just whatever you can do to keep accountability of your weapons is extremely important. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just a little story mixed in with something that you really don't want to do, mixed in with, you know, some things that you might learn a little bit. You know, make sure you have accountability of your weapons. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. That would be awesome. If you want to stick around for more videos, subscribe button. That would be even better. If you want to, hit that notification bell button. That is just freaking amazing. It'll make my day if you're not following me on Instagram and Snapchat. Social media links are right there. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you later.